Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Hi, I'm Matt from BuzzFeed. I run the tech section there. And so what I'm talking about today is dark social. And to talk about dark social, first we're going to talk a little bit about web traffic. So if you look broadly speaking, there are kind of like three kinds of web traffic, at least according to Google Analytics. So you have search traffic, which is traffic that gets to your website through search. Then you have referral traffic, which you can see how somebody got to your website. So if you click a link from Facebook, it tells you it came from Facebook or CNN or whatever site. And then you've got direct traffic, where you, for one reason or another, that there's no referral information, so you can't quite see how this traffic wound up on your particular web page. And there are a lot of reasons you might not see referral data for a link. For instance, if you're going from a secure link, an HTTPS link, to a non-secure, just a regular HTTP link, or if you're using like a really old version of Internet Explorer with an all-flash website, sometimes it doesn't pass referral data then. And then in sort of a more interesting edge case, if you're on iOS, if you're going from an app to a browser, that's another reason you wouldn't see referral data. But what we're most interested in is the instance where if you follow a link from email or IM, you often won't get referral data. So this is what we're interested in with dark social. So you're probably familiar with dark matter, or the concept of it. Basically, like 84% of the matter in the universe we can't really detect or see. We just kind of know it's there. And so dark social is a phrase coined by Alexis Madrigal to kind of describe all of this sharing happening through email and IM that you can't really see. So we know it's happening because you're probably not typing in like a 400 character URL to get someplace, but we don't really know where it's coming from, or who's doing it or why. Hence the dark social. We just know it's happening. And to sort of complicate this more, so all dark social traffic is direct traffic, but not all direct traffic is dark social. So, which when we get into, sorry, I'm trying to figure out where I'm at. Okay, so we're mostly talking about email and IM, which brings me to this slide here. When we're looking at email and IM, this is a New York Times study that was on Poynter, and if you look at the way people are sharing. What's interesting, there are a couple things. One, millennials now share more through posted links on Facebook and Twitter than they do through email. And obviously that changes when you look as you go older. Gen X really likes email, and that's how they're doing a lot of it. And then there's, and I don't have a slide on this, but there's a Pew study that when you go even younger, like the numbers kind of get starker. Like for people who are 12 to 17, only 6% of them use email daily, which is kind of astounding. And if only 37% use it even once a week. And then only half of them are using traditional IM once a week. And when they are using messaging, it tends to be over these sort of other social networks like Facebook, which if you remember that Josh Miller post a couple weeks ago when he was talking about how teenagers use the internet, his sister didn't really like Facebook. She's sort of a younger teen, and sort of the striking things when you think about how younger people are using social networks. So she kind of uses Facebook but doesn't like it. She doesn't use IM. She's really into Tumblr, which seems to be kind of like a thing for teens. So now we're going to go. So when we're talking about email and IM, there's a couple things that are pretty interesting when you're looking at email. For one, email is still the most popular thing people do with their smartphone, according to one Pew study. And there was another study that came out really recently, and thinking about email and where it's coming from. The most popular mail app in the world now is the iOS mail app, which has a 35% share, according to Campaign Monitor. So a lot of the email that you're seeing is mobile. And what we've noticed, and so the kind of most of the data I've brought today is actually from BuzzFeed and from the BuzzFeed network, which are two different things. So there's BuzzFeed.com, which is the meme site, which if you don't know about it, I can give you 27 reasons you should after the talk. But then the other side of BuzzFeed's business was sort of like before the site became a thing was it was kind of like an ad network sort of thing where they would sort of try to track viral content and predict what would become viral. And so there are a lot of sites in the BuzzFeed network, everything from like the Atlantic Wire to TMZ to a bunch of other sites. And so we have a lot of sort of aggregate data. And when you're thinking about email and IM, one of the really interesting things that's happened this year on the BuzzFeed network is that referrals from email have cratered and they have not picked back up. So when you're looking across all these sites, you've had 13 million referrals from email. And obviously you can't see all email, but there's some referrals from email that you can track, and the ones that we can, is sort of indicative of a broader trend. Email is falling, and so when we're looking at BuzzFeed's data, so this is sort of the composition of like BuzzFeed.com right now, what traffic kind of looks like as we can estimate it. So the reason this is split up a bit is, so December was our biggest month ever for traffic at BuzzFeed. We had 43 million uniques, which is like almost double what it was the year before. And if you look at like where a lot of the growth was coming from, so social got bigger, which that's traditional social sharing, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, etc. And then you've got the dark social, which is the direct traffic, and that's also grown quite a bit. Now, when we break this down a little bit more, this is the really astounding thing about direct traffic and the dark social stuff. It's really, really mobile, at least for BuzzFeed. And our traffic increasingly is really, really mobile. So of our direct traffic, which would be the dark social stuff, nearly half of it is mobile. And in December, for our biggest month, 45% of our unique visitor traffic last month was mobile. So it's like super, super mobile. And when I mentioned this to Alexis Madrigal, the thing he said to me was like, "Holy shit, you have all the kids," right? Because when you're thinking about usage patterns and who's using mobile, but at the same time, this is actually so you think mobile, you think younger, but what complicates this sort of picture of direct traffic is when BuzzFeed actually has data scientists, so there are PhDs at BuzzFeed. When you're looking at like tendencies and demographic data across that, from what we can tell, a lot of it is actually older and non-urban. The stuff coming from what we can tell are non-mobile devices. It's less likely to come from urban communities, and it's disproportionately originating from the middle of the country than the coasts. So you kind of have this like really heterogeneous mix where you've got the younger people, as best we could tell, coming from mobile devices, and you've got this other portion of direct traffic, which is older and less urban. And if you look at social and dark social, there's actually 95% correlation between the two. If you get a lot of social traffic, you will have a lot of dark social traffic. And this is sort of like relates to the nature of content as it's shared. And this is sort of like what the BuzzFeed philosophy is. The whole game is, rather than optimizing for search, it's optimizing for social. It's trying to get people to share things, which is sort of a different kind of, it's not really gaming. I guess you could consider it like psychological gaming, preying on people's weaknesses rather than algorithms' weaknesses. And that sort of, transcends websites and social networks. So when something is really social, it's also got a lot of dark social behind it. And to sort of kind of lay out how hard it is to see what's happening with dark social precisely, nobody can quite explain why with the BuzzFeed network, I asked a bunch of people at Our Design, no one's quite sure why there's a huge spike in dark social from September to December, which maybe you guys can sort of think about. Because at first I thought, if given the timing, it may have been related to do not track sort of becoming more widespread, given that it's sort of a default option now on Windows 8 and IE 10, but that's not quite the case. And to go back to the correlation, if you look at direct page views, like with this chart, you can see like they have been like sort of going up in tandem. And the other thing we know about dark social versus social, so the bigger a hit something is, the lower the percentage of it that comes from dark social. And this is in part because of the nature of sharing on social versus dark social. When something goes really big on Facebook or on Twitter, right, it goes up exponentially. But if something is being passed around on IM, even if it's really popular, it doesn't quite explode the same way that it does with sort of these built-in sharing mechanisms on Facebook and Twitter, just because of the nature of that. Which is sort of the end of the slides here. But there are a couple things that sort of come out of all of that. So as the nature of direct traffic has changed, because direct traffic's been around forever, but now it's like really highly mobile. And it has been email and IM, but when you go back to sort of the mobile stuff, one of the really crazy things we found with direct traffic from iOS, nearly 20% of it comes from Facebook chat and Messenger, as best we can tell. So there's a lot of sharing on iOS happening via Facebook chat, which is probably younger people, as best we can tell. And so as this sort of evolves, right, we're probably going to see less and less coming from email and more through chat and sort of these sort of alternative things. But and even though they're kind of off the radar dark social, like since they're going through existing social networks like Facebook actually owns like a decent chunk of this dark social pie, as best we can tell. So I think that's, yeah, I mean, I basically just came to throw a bunch of data at you guys to sort of lay out what we know about it as best we can. Yeah. Questions? Hi.
One before it.
Sorry, I don't really know how to work PowerPoint.
I was just wondering, are you sure that's not some weird measurement issue? Because that is such a big jump that.
It is a crazy jump. They've checked the numbers and rechecked them, and that supposedly, according to our people, is correct. They're not quite sure why. I mean, there are a couple, and this is across all the BuzzFeed sites, all the BuzzFeed network sites. So there could be sort of any number of things. A spike on mobile, and in fact, like one of the interesting things is when I was looking today at numbers for like the videos we've been doing since Zay Frank started at BuzzFeed, like in some of his videos, 80% of the views are coming from mobile now, and when you're looking at growth, when something is getting bigger, like more and more of that pie is coming from mobile, and mobile is where you're seeing a lot of these instances of direct traffic, in part when you think about app handoffs. From like an app to Safari. So I don't have a great explanation there, but our people didn't either. This is from BuzzFeed's direct measurement because they have a couple different ways of tracking on different sites that are part of the network. So this is all internal.
I don't know if this is a question for you or for the room, but dark social is this very publisher-centric, advertising-centric view of what this behavior is.
Yep.
But to some large percentage of users, especially on mobile, isn't this experienced as privacy?
Yes. I mean, right, like, but that's I mean, it actually, if you look at the types of stories that tend to be hits with a lot of direct traffic versus, actually, I know what can explain a lot of this. I just thought about this. The biggest stories with direct traffic in the network during that time period were actually Kate Middleton nude pictures. And when you which was a big story for a lot of sites. And more salacious stories tend to be the ones that are bigger with direct traffic. So, and you do see that with things like celebrity nude pics or that type of thing. There's only, like when we were looking at the top 20 stories across the network, there's only about a 45% overlap of the kinds of stories between the biggest dark social hits and social hits. So hits are hits, but the kinds of stories that are hits, you do get some variation in part because people, you're right, that people want to.
20 million people are making intentional privacy choices about their browser behavior?
No, I mean, I'm saying 20 million people would probably not want to post Kate Middleton nude pics on their Facebook, but they would share them over IM. But I don't know, like the spike, there wasn't like a great idea as to where that came from per se.
Sort of the second half of that question is between whatever incognito mode or switching from the iOS mail app into Safari browser where you can use referrals and all those things. These are all big privacy ones for users. So like some isn't.
Like do not track's big for people. It's like and Google also like they wouldn't fall into this because this would be considered search traffic, right? But if you're logged into Google now, that's all done through SSL, so you're not getting search terms and referrals, which is also, you know, it's not a problem for users, it's a problem for marketers.
And Twitter and Facebook both enable this. So there's like a lot of privacy that seem like they're fueling dark social.
Actually, Twitter apparently fixed something in their mobile app where now you can see where it comes from Twitter, where we used to have a lot of direct traffic coming from certain Twitter apps. Like TweetDeck for a long time didn't give you referral data, for instance, but it does now. And the interesting thing about the Facebook chat is it being 20% of the iOS dark traffic. Like for a while, we couldn't tell why so much Facebook traffic had no referral behind it, but there were sort of other indicators it was coming from Facebook. But it was actually like Yael Carmon who pointed out that actually what that's coming from is from Facebook chat, which may be bigger than like a lot of people think it is.
It seems like there's kind of a compression up to the 100 million, and I mean if you're stretching it out by tens, if I look at a graph that perhaps had a higher bound, I wouldn't see such discrepancy between the private social and the public social, aka dark social, regular social. So what's the reason for stretching it out?
I did not make this chart, so I could not tell you.